All right, let's go ahead and see if we are connected. I don't know if we are connected. It looks like we have an excellent connection. I just don't see the actual. Okay, here we go. We have our title card, and I finally have streaming rights over YouTube. So let's go ahead and dive right in. We have a championship game featuring both of the underdogs of the UFL's semifinal. This league has beautiful parity, and I do have some complaints about this league that I will provide in a separate video, mostly on retaining profitability as a league. Put me in as commissioner, and I will ensure a future here. Anyways, by beautiful parity, I mean, and there's a new commissioner, by the way. I mean that the Roughnecks and Renegades were a game away from a playoff in both conferences at 5-5 each, just barely missing it. The Brahmas and the Showboats were awful, but at least secured a win with the Showboats securing two of those victories. See, I don't like that the pop-ups happen while I'm providing this. Anyways, it was the Defenders and the Panthers in the championship that are both only 6-4. The Stallions and the Battlehawks were excellent, with the 6-game win streak of the Battlehawks making them seem like a shoo-in for the championship. I believe that quarterback Bryce Perkins for the Michigan Panthers is miles more talented than the current league touchdown leader in the DC Defenders. Furthermore, the total offense and defense for the Panthers belies that a 3-point projection by Vegas, now I believe it is a 3.5-point projection, might be a little too close. The Panthers won their season meeting with the Defenders by 24 points, okay? Now, Bryce Perkins was playing by then. I will have more UFL information in the future, but I am hopping on board Total Football starting tonight. So next time we'll have league previews for the CFL, UFL, American College Football, and the NFL. I came in late, that's all, but we will cover this championship game in great detail. So let's dive into some more substantial topics, being that the Panthers won against the Birmingham Stallions. And they won it by 44-29, and that was probably an embarrassing outcome for the Stallions, except Bryce Perkins, the league MVP, elevated his team into something of a higher order than their record would have indicated. The box score, we'll go ahead and provide a more detailed box score, but we'll have a simplified one just to move things along. At the very end, I'll get into the nitty-gritty with the better box score than these quick overviews. So let's go ahead and do that. I did not like how the Stallions, I mean, it looks even, right? But I don't like how the Stallions were able to thunder back late in the game instead of the Panthers finishing them off, as a professional team should at this level. They left the door open, so to speak, if you know the parlance. At one point, the Stallions scored 17 points in a row late into that game. We're going to go ahead and move on to the Defenders now. And the Defenders, they had a much more substantial win here. They beat the team that I would have presumed to have won the whole thing in the Battlehawks. They won convincingly. So I assumed that the Battlehawks would have won because of that 6-game win streak heading into the playoffs. But that was not to be anyways. The Defenders, on the other hand, let's go ahead and look at the simplified stats, if we will. And now we see something more salient. It provides a sense of dominance with the Defenders clearly outplaying the Battlehawks. It was the defense that throttled the Battlehawks, which will provide us an interesting rematch between the Defenders and Panthers before we get into. So let's go ahead and look at the Defenders and Panthers. Doesn't look great. Bryce Perkins and the Panthers blew them out, and we can only assume that Perkins has improved up until now within Coach Nolan's system. So please don't be fooled by the passing yards here. What we usually want to look at are the pass yards per pass, which is 10.4 versus 6.9. 6.9 is not good, but 10.4 is excellent. Pass yards in the competition, though, does indicate that the Panthers' pass defense is their weakness. So think of it that way. Because the rushing yards, the Panthers were able to hold them down, but not necessarily the passing game. Because the defenders do have a good quarterback. In any case, let's move along. Now we're getting to the nitty and the gritty. As we look at Bryce Perkins in comparison, I just look at that quarterback rating. That's a big thing. And you compare it to Ta'amu. In Ta'amu, though, he has more touchdowns at 7.5. 17 touchdowns, that is, compared to the 9 by Bryce Perkins. But Bryce Perkins joined midway into the season. So keep that in mind. But whatever we look at these quarterbacks, don't think of quarterbacks as dueling. Quarterbacks are going up against a defense. So the defender's defense was unable to contain Bryce Perkins in their match, whereas the Panthers' defense was able to stifle Ta'amu and their running attack, which means that Ta'amu is going to have to outperform, expectations in terms of the passing game. I'm not going to worry too much about the sacks because those are a small amount of sacks throughout the season for DC, whereas Bryce Perkins seems to get hit a little bit more per game because you remember he joined midway through the season. And by the way, both of these quarterbacks are very effective. 4 touchdowns for playing the whole season versus 2 for midway through. Basically the same kind of guy. Basically. And touchdowns is basically the same kind of guy too, because Bryce Perkins is the MVP. He was able to perform basically as well as Ta'amu, if not better, in a shorter span of time. Okay. Even though, Ta'amu doubles his stats, yards and such. It's because Bryce Perkins joined midway through. Okay. Just to get that out there. What I am most impressed with is the defense of the Panthers. It's not a perfect defense. Like I said, the pass yards will kill them. I think that the Panthers have a more varied attack, though, because their rushers are a significant threat. It's unfortunate that there's no viewers. I think I have to promote these in the future if I am going to go ahead and, do this live. So far, I feel really comfortable going live, though, so that's a good thing. As we move on to the next slide, you already know who I think is going to win. I think that the Michigan Panthers are going to win and cover in this inaugural UFL championship. It's because they have a better defense, a flawed defense, but a defense that will make the DC defenders more one-dimensional. And the DC defenders don't necessarily have a great rush attack despite their performance against those Battlehawks, and I think that was an impressive win by them. But if we look at the Panthers, they have a good defense that can stifle, make them one-dimensional, meaning that they can scheme more towards the pass and make it harder for Ta'amu. And we see Bryce Perkins, the MVP, is at least equanimity. It has some equanimity, with Ta'amu, and if not better. The QBR basically shows you that he's better. And he has rushing support to make sure that he can get there. And he has passing support to get there. I think that Bryce Perkins will go ahead and lead the Panthers to a win, and they'll cover. Bye for now.